Welcome to your Daily Detroit for Tuesday, September 17th, 2019. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Today, a deeper dive into a story that's impacting thousands of Metro Detroiters, Michiganders, and auto workers across the country. You probably know that the United Auto Workers at General Motors have gone on strike. But what does that mean? What's the impact down the line? We'll unpack that with auto analyst Michelle Krebs of autotrader.com.
Then we talk about Ford's new plans for its Dearborn campus and a bakery in the city that's made national news. All of that right after this.
This episode of Your Daily Detroit is brought to you by Lawrence Technological University. Traditional four-year students love Lawrence Tech's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track, and most classes are conveniently offered evenings at LTU's beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Find out more at ltu.edu. That's ltu.edu.
Nearly 50,000 members of the United Auto Workers who work for General Motors are on strike, halting production at GM plants after the last four-year deal expired without agreement on a new deal. It's the first time that UAW has gone on strike in 12 years. It also comes amid a deepening federal investigation into embezzlement of member dues and money from automakers that was earmarked for job training programs. That investigation has so far resulted in 9 convictions of top UAW officials and many indictments, and it's also implicated the UAW president, Gary Jones. Joining us to talk all about the UAW strike situation is Michelle Krebs. She's the executive analyst for AutoTrader. Michelle, GM took the step of revealing kind of the broad swath outlines of what it's proposing to UAW leadership. It includes things like $7 billion in new investment, 5,400 new jobs, profit-sharing payments, and then, it's promising some solutions to plants set to close here in Michigan and in Ohio. So for the union, what exactly is the problem here?
This was an unusual move. And I think General Motors was reaching out to the rank and file as well as the public as much as anything. The UAW leadership is under investigation for corruption, and there have been many indictments and some, there are people serving jail time. I think that perhaps GM was playing on the possible credibility crisis that the UAW leadership has with the rank and file.
But for the membership, I mean, they of course haven't seen this proposed deal that GM's offering yet because of the way the union always operates here. That the leadership negotiates directly. But why is what they're offering or saying that they're offering not enough? What's still left for the membership?
There are a lot of details that are not there. And I'm not sure that a couple of the other aspects that were important to the union, healthcare coverage, we're hearing through the grapevine, not through GM, that they wanted to raise the contribution of employees. And that's been a no-no with the union for a long time. There's the solutions for the plants. Those are kind of vague. So I think there's a lot, while they've got big numbers on the headlines, there's a lot of detail that's not there.
So going back to talking about the corruption investigation, the kind of broadening corruption investigation, what effect is that having on these negotiations, broadly speaking?
Well, I think it raises the question in the minds of the rank and file, is my UAW leadership negotiating in my best interest? And we had proof of that 4 years ago. This investigation has been going on for quite some time. If you look back to the last round of negotiations, the union leadership at Fiat Chrysler agreed to a contract, put it to its membership, and they voted it down. So that's proof to me that these kinds of situations cause the rank and file to be skeptical of their own leadership.
What does your gut say about how long this strike goes on?
Well, maybe I'm being an optimist, but I'm hoping it'll be short because these strikes are not good for anyone. Union members in particular, bringing home a $250 a week paycheck, that's not what they're used to. And they don't have health coverage, although GM announced today it's offering them COBRA, which I assume they have to pay for. It's, a black eye on the industry. It's not good for the public look of it. And it's certainly not good for General Motors either. They're losing money every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, talk about the impact economically of this strike. I mean, who does this hurt the worst? GM, the hourly union workers? And what's the risk to the broader economy?
Well, it's a far less risk today than it used to be on the broader economy. I mean, GM's down to only a 17% market share, whereas in the 1980s they were 40%. Even in the 1990s they were, I think, in the 30s. So it's not anywhere near the impact it used to be, but it's still an impact. It's an impact on, they're not bringing in revenue. They're not making profits right now. This could, if it continues, trickle down to part suppliers. That hasn't happened yet. Right now, dealers and customers are, carrying on as usual, but if it went on for a long time, there would be product shortages. So it's just not good all the way around.
Michelle Krebs is executive analyst for Auto Trader. Michelle, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, that's a great conversation, Sven. I think it's important that we take a minute and talk about the fact that this is a long story, and there's a lot of history here to kind of unpack that got us to where we are today.
Absolutely. The UAW workers are really hoping to claw back some of the concessions that they agreed to, going back almost 10 years now, when GM was on the verge of collapse and went through bankruptcy to basically save the company. So among those things, new hires that came to the company since they agreed to that deal back then make around only about half the amount, the hourly wage, that veteran employees, people who have been there since before that agreement. And it takes them 8 years to get up to the level of those veteran employees in terms of pay. They're also paying more out of pocket for their healthcare. We heard Michelle talk about that they're reportedly going to be asked to pay even more. Although by a lot of standards around, modern, workplaces, they still pay very little.
I think their pay is their copay on that is like 4% or something like that, 4 or 5% compared to much higher for other sectors. And I was able to confirm actually after that interview that yes, General Motors switched everybody over to COBRA that's paid for by the UAW Strike Fund.
GM's also expanded the use of temporary workers. I think you know a little bit about what that means, but these are workers in some cases who maybe have been on the job working on the line for years now, but they're still classified as temporary workers, so they don't get the full benefits and pay.
That's a common tactic across industries, not just the auto industry.
Mm-hmm. And then of course, Jer, we talked about it last November. The big D-Day when General Motors announced that it was unallocating 5 plants, including Detroit Hamtramck and a transmission plant in Warren. That means that basically they are ending production of the models made in those plants with nothing in line to replace them. So that means essentially, for all intents and purposes, that they're probably going to close. The UAW wants to see commitments to new products for those plants so that all those people don't lose a job. I mean, these are really tough issues.
For sure they are. And it's interesting to see some of the negotiations kind of go public with General Motors outlining some of the deal terms on their most recent offer to them, talking about, finding a product for GM's Detroit Hamtramck plant, some of the other things like that. You usually see that kind of stuff behind the scenes. You don't always see companies just tipping the cards and negotiating a little bit in public.
Rumor has it that they're offering to start production of an electric pickup truck for Detroit Hamtramck, and then also they closed a plant in Lordstown, Ohio. They're talking apparently about reportedly about launching a new battery manufacturing facility, electric vehicle battery facility in Ohio to kind of offset some of those job losses. Since GM's bankruptcy, the company has been making record profits. They've been very successful, but they've really been getting more and more lean. They've moved more production to Mexico. The UAW has targeted GM. This is their pattern. They always pick one automaker of the 3 to target, and then that becomes the template agreement for subsequent agreements with the other 3. So in this case, they will ostensibly hammer out an agreement with GM, and members will vote to ratify it, and then that'll become the template for Ford and Fiat Chrysler. But we'll have to see. Like I said, I think these are some tough issues that they're trying to get through, and the corruption investigation is not going to make any of it easier.
Especially in this age of what we see with the tactics, and I'm not making a political judgment here, but saying just the tactics with the media of, say, President Trump, when something's going on and all of a sudden something else happens and it's bigger and then everyone loses their focus. I hate to say it. And I'll say this, like, as somebody who, like, I have family that have been part of the union. I can't help but believe that there's a little bit of wagging the dog going on here.
Trying to deflect attention.
Skeptical, Jared, skeptical. But I feel like there could easily be a situation where, okay, all this corruption investigation's happening. This has been ongoing for years, and there's stuff to it. This is not unsubstantiated. The feds are coming in hard at the leadership of the UAW. I can't help but think like a prolonged strike does a lot to distract members, or maybe even try to distract the media, or kind of help the leadership's position. I don't know if the leadership really have their own incentive to settle the strike quickly.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's a lot of dyed-in-the-wool union families out there who are also, frankly, pretty disgusted with what they've seen come out of this investigation so far. 9 indictments, people siphoning money that members pay in their dues on these opulent homes and personal gain.
Ford's Dearborn campus may be best known today for the so-called Glass House headquarters building or the Salt and Pepper Shaker office towers visible from the Southfield Freeway. But the automaker has ambitious plans to redevelop its Research and Engineering Center in Dearborn as a futuristic, walkable campus filled with modernist architecture and technology, and buzzing with pedestrians, electric bikes and scooters, and, in the future, autonomous vehicles.
Ford today unveiled its master plan for the triangle-shaped campus, which sits across the street from the Henry Ford Museum and is defined by Oakwood Boulevard, Snow Avenue, and Rotunda Drive. The company envisions the focal point being a new central campus building sitting on the site of what is today its 66-year-old product development center. It anticipates housing more than 6,000 designers and vehicle development employees when it's finished in 2025.
Renderings, which we'll post up on Daily Detroit, show low-slung buildings with plenty of curving lines, exposed wood materials, high ceilings, and long banks of floor-to-ceiling windows connected by winding, landscape paths that weave alongside and underneath the buildings. Ford says the campus of interconnected buildings could eventually house more than 20,000 employees in flexible, high-tech workspaces, up from around 11,000 today. Ford acknowledges that the changes are geared in part at attracting world-class talent. It also says that the changes are fully in line with what it's doing at its Corktown campus in Detroit and its Ann Arbor robotics lab in creating more innovative and interactive workspaces to help speed decision-making and product development. There are some interesting highlights on this one, Sven.
Indeed. So the Research and Engineering Center would be moving closer to Oakwood Boulevard, they say, as part of this new plan to better connect with the surrounding neighborhoods. I mean, now it's very much like an office park, with parking lots and disconnected buildings and everything.
Yeah, it's a very open campus as far as it's a long way between buildings and things when you go around that place.
I'm struck by looking at these. I mean, they look a lot like the renderings of Bedrock's proposal for the Monroe blocks downtown, with lots of kind of weaving pedestrian pathways and interconnected balconies and things like that.
It seems very European influence. It's got that more modern kind of Silicon Valley, California vibe. Looking at those things, they look like something, looking at these renderings, it looks like something straight out of California, something you'd see with the Microsoft campus or the new Apple campus.
Yeah, definitely with a Scandinavian flair about it. I mean, I would note that the lead architect and landscape architect is a Norwegian firm called Snohetta.
So Ford had announced a major renovation to its Dearborn campus back in 2016. How does this all relate to it?
Well, I'm told that's still underway. No changes to that, but that this is the next phase and the update to its master plan. So this is kind of part of it.
Before we wrap this segment up, I just got to ask, how long has this campus in Dearborn been a thing?
So this was part of an earlier master plan that Ford unveiled, back when they were pretty much literally on top of the world. It was right after the Second World War and everybody was buying up cars and everything. President Dwight Eisenhower, you remember him, right, Jer?
I like Ike.
He actually dedicated Ford's Research and Engineering Center back in May of 1953. Man, you can just imagine it, right? All the giant land yacht cars parked, lined up, shining chrome and everything. And I like Ike cracking the champagne bottle against the cornice there, I guess.
That would be an amazing sight. And I'm just going to say, I love land yachts. All right, so we wanted to end the show today with some sweet news. It turns out there's another entrant in Detroit's club of bakeries that are getting national attention. And this one opened up within just the last year. And interestingly, in this hyper-connected world, they literally haven't posted on their Instagram since before they swung open their doors.
That's like a sin in this era.
I know, right? Ochre over on Grand River and Warren just snagged the number 4 spot in Bon Appetit magazine's Hot 10 list of restaurants across the United States. And it's the only winner from Michigan. Ochre is from the folks that did Astro Coffee over in Corktown, which has been, Sven, just like a huge success. It's right next to Slows.
Yep.
And that's a project by Jessica Hitz and Daisuke Hughes. So I always knew between their egg sandwiches and Anzac cookies, I didn't realize until, it opened that they had a bakery underway. But now it's one of those things you look back and you're like, wow, all the baked goods were really good. And now they have a bakery and I'm excited and more places to get Anzac cookies, which is one of my favorites.
What's an Anzac cookie, Jer?
Okay, so this is an obscure reference to cookies that are from New Zealand and Australia before World War I. I guess they travel really well between they're oatmeal cookies and they have golden syrup.
And they sustained explorers on long, perilous cross-sea ventures.
They sustain me in long, perilous...
They prevent scurvy is what you're saying. Alrighty, that'll do it for today's show, friends. Net, this was a real win-win of a show, huh?
We totally engaged the butterfly effect to break down silos, but not boil the ocean, Sven.
Dude, we don't work at corporations anymore, so we don't have to talk like this.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry, I was at a presentation today. I had complete flashbacks. Thank you, Sven. Thank you.
Yeah, you're safe here, Jared. It's Daily Detroit. We talk like real people.
With that, I'm Jer Stace. Thanks for listening.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.